Welcome everyone to Coffee, Coaching, and Callings, a live podcast created for coaches, leaders, and helping professionals that are on a mission to lead a successful and heart-centered life. Your hosts today are myself, Laurel Elders, Tabitha Danlow, and we are from the Institute for Integrative Intelligence, where it is our mission to elevate human potential through the art and the science of masterful coaching. Today, we're going to be focusing on business success tips for coaches and helping professionals. And our topic today is fear. And specifically, how to use fear as a ladder to your business success. So how can you partner with fear? That's a big one.
For those of you who are like, I'm out, I'm going to shut this down right now, I invite you to sit with the discomfort, because this is probably something you really need to listen to if there's a part of you that's like, nope, don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yes. And I'm curious because I know now Tabitha is a business coach. She's a coach on many levels, but she also does business consulting, and she's helped so many coaches and professionals, not just coaches, to successfully launch and expand their businesses. And I'm curious, I know we'd talked and you'd mentioned that fear, it's not a matter of if fear comes up, it's always a matter of when. And what do you see are the primary fears that people face when starting a new business?
That's a great question. It really is a matter of when, and I try to prepare all of my clients for that really early on in our coaching together, because it hits differently for different people. There's probably three core areas I see it hit the most, though. The first is marketing. When it comes to marketing your business, which is absolutely necessary, I see a lot of people procrastinate here, avoid this. They do marketing things that don't really put themselves out there because they're so afraid of rejection. They're so afraid of it not working. They're so afraid of being confronted with failure. But beneath that's probably some fear of success as well. So marketing is a very vulnerable thing to do, especially if you're more of a solopreneur, like a coach. You are your brand. And so when you market your business, you are putting yourself out there. It's very vulnerable. So I find that there's a lot of fear that comes up when we finally get to marketing. You know, there's some excitement and just a lot of good vibes for some of the initial things. And then it's time to like really spread the word. It's like, what? And people shut down. So that's like the first area I see the most. The second is around money. So when it's time to actually decide what are my rates or how are we going to actually make money for this business, there can be a lot of limiting beliefs that come up for people. And so when we get to the actual cold hard cash conversations, people start to freak out and wig out and have all sorts of fears pop up. And then the third kind of ties into that, and that's their limiting beliefs about their worth. And so a lot of people have fear around, well, who am I? That imposter syndrome that comes up for most of us, myself included. I've had moments of that for sure. I don't have this all figured out. And limiting beliefs of like, well, why would they listen to me? And who am I to give this advice? Or who am I to do these things? Or am I kidding myself? And so then we get into that inner critic voice of those limiting beliefs around your worth. And really that often ties back into that fear of success again. So those are the three I see the most.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I've experienced all of them.
Me too. Raise your hand.
Yes. So you're a six-figure coach. How many fears have you had to face to get to where you are today? Because you went solo, you went all in with your business.
So I love this question because a lot of people make assumptions about me because my coaching practice launched very quickly. Mm-hmm. So I love when I can like set the record straight of the absolute like horror and fear I faced many years ago in my other businesses. So when I was 20, I joined Mary Kay Cosmetics as a part-time college job. And I didn't know it at the time, but soon realized I had a knack for business and sales and people. And I just ended up falling in love with it. And I did that for about 4 years before I went to corporate America. So I had 4 years in Mary Kay hearing the word no over and over and over and over again. And in that company, we used to have contests to see who could hear the word no the most. Like we would flip it and we would like win prizes for getting rejected. Like what a different way to approach your fear, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then I went to corporate America and I went into sales and I was in inside sales. And my requirement, if you will, was to make 100 phone calls a day. Okay. And I worked Monday through Friday, the whole month. And by the end of the month, my goal was to have around 100 sales, 100 phone calls a day for 100 sales at the end of the month. You know how often I got rejected? All the time. I actually did the math and I was like, I've probably heard the word no over 1 million times. So by the time I got to my coaching business, I kind of had become ambivalent to fear around rejection. I was like, I just understand that it's a part of business. They're not saying they hate my guts. I don't take it personally most of the time. Every once in a while, something might hit me and I'm like, and then I'm okay, but I've had literally almost a decade of my life before coaching being rejected. You learn something or two when you have a decade of no's. And so the best thing I can tell people is like, you got to get out there and practice. I had a lot of practice before I became a coach. And I feel really lucky and blessed for that. A lot of no's.
Well, and I've heard the saying, every overnight success is 10 years in the making. And I think there's a lot of wisdom to that because I know myself, when I first started out as a coach, I did not know the marketing piece. So when my coaching business wasn't just launching like I thought everyone else's was, I beat myself up and thought, oh, I just don't have what it takes. And that was not true. It was, I had to learn the marketing piece and also that self-faith and self-trust piece that you spoke to as well.
And it is uncomfortable. It will be uncomfortable. And the more we can approach that head on and kind of approach it with love, then this is going to feel awkward. This is going to be uncomfortable. It's okay. I'm learning and growing. But as adults, we've kind of gotten used to liking how it feels good to be masterful of things and good at things. Like we're adults, we're supposed to have it all together. But if you think about that curiosity you had as a kid, those growing pains as a kid, as you were learning, like if you can tap back into that, that can really help to guide you. Because most people went to school or got certified to do this thing. Business is this whole other thing. Marketing is this thing. So have this passion for our profession, but if we are running a business, it's an entire other can of worms. I just got really lucky and I had a lot of experience with that before I became a coach.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh yeah, you just do XYZ, plug and play, done, boom. And so I've had a lot of fear leading up to that. I've had hyperventilation moments leading up to that. I've had panic attacks leading up to that. Because I've had people say like, Tab, you make it look so easy. And I'm like, if only you could have seen me. Some of those really difficult moments. It was like anything else. It's time and practice.
It is. It really is. Yeah.
A maestro overnight, right? You're like one of those true genius people. And so those are the exceptions. They're not the rules.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. So true. Well, and one thing that Tabitha and I really wanted to bring to the table today, we love talking about these concepts and, our goal is always for our messages that we talk about to be a lantern for people and their path. And we also want you to walk away with something. So there is a coaching tool that's really quite lovely that we call the success ladder. And basically it's how to make friends with your fear. And it is based off of a Sufi teaching that I ran across decades ago. And what I took away from this teaching was that fear is only half a message. It's half a message. We often relate to it as if it's the message. It's like, taking over. But no, it's just half of a message. It's what we don't want. And the problem is our egos can be so loud that it mutes out our heart, which has the second half of the message, that what we do want. So in this process, and Tabitha, I know we've worked on this before together, so feel free to chime in, but in this process, basically you take your fear, you identify it, and really let it speak to you. What don't you want to have happen? Great. I know I don't want to look silly in front of a class when I go speak or in front of a workshop. Okay. So if I know I don't want to, come across as not knowing what I'm doing, I can prepare. So it gave me the steps to take to ensure that, I could at least come across more confident or whatever that is. Right. So it's like use your fear to get you to look at what is it that you do want and how can you take a step towards that so that you can grow in your confidence by the time the thing you're worried about is going to show up.
Right. And if I can bring in the Enneagram for a second.
Oh, please do. That's where it gets fun too.
We have positive outlook types and negative outlook types. And so the positive outlook types of the world might not go to that, like, what don't I want? They might feel the fear for a second and be like, it's okay, it'll all work out. And they'll kind of more easily drift what I do want. But our negative outlook types, any other sixes in the house, I'm a negative outlook type. And sixes, especially, we're like worst case scenario. And we're, in our little rabbit hole of danger there. But we have to work twice as hard as the other types to flip it into what we do want, because we are more hardwired for what we don't want and to let that fear kind of take over more. And so I think that's important to know, like, how do you go, which way are you kind of hardwired? Because you got to work maybe a little harder on that. So
yes. Yeah. That self-awareness piece, it's so key.
Yeah.
Well, and I was reading the other day, the Course in Miracles, and it said, every illusion is one of fear. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. It's not necessary to seek for what is true, because what is true is already there. But it is necessary to seek for what is false so that we can remove it, move past it.
Well, and you had said this before, and I completely agree with you. We must become friends with our fear. And I know I don't know about you, but when I bring that up to clients, they're like, no, I want to kill my fear. I want to, annihilate it. And it's like, whoa, well, if we're having an integrative approach, right? And we are definitely integrative coaches, that means all parts, that means all aspects of ourselves. And so if we're trying to eliminate or remove something or disown it, that's not integrative.
Yeah.
Part of you that's trying to give you a message, and it's a message of protection. That's really all that fear is it's there to protect us. It's there to keep us safe. It's not rational a lot of the times. Sometimes it's downright goofy, but that's okay. Like, it doesn't have to make sense, but it is there for a reason. And so the more we push it away, the harder this becomes to then ask what we do want, to partner with our fear and to soothe our fear and embrace that part of ourselves. And I always think of that as such a deeper part of our integrative growth as human beings.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's like embrace it, see what's there. One of the faculty at Harvard Business, I just took a class, their program for leadership development. And Joshua Margolis, he said the number one thing that he learned as a leader, and I loved this, he said, lean into the skid. So, when you're learning how to drive, and if you're on ice, your reaction might be to just, freak out, but actually lean into the skid will help you course correct. And I was like, that is brilliant. That's how it is with fear. If we learn how to lean into it to see what it can share with us and tell us and partner with it instead of letting the fear grow bigger when we, right, if we turn away from the fear, it actually grows.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I want to emphasize, Laurel just said lean in, not bulldoze in.
Right.
There's a good balance here, right? Is sometimes it's like, all right, I'm gonna do it. And you maybe over course correct by leaning in too hard. And so it's not a lean, it's a push. And like that's sometimes more than you can handle, right? And so there's a delicate dance with fear of leaning in, embracing it, but not letting it take you over and not completely avoiding it, right? Yeah. So there's gentleness required sometimes too.
That is such a good point. And it reminds me, we just did a podcast with Melanie Dewberry, and she brought forth the concept and importance of self-love. And, there's two types of fears that we can contend with as business owners. There's, externally based fears, like, I don't know how to do that. Don't know how to set up this system. And those we can get consultants and, the experts to come in and help us. And then there's the internal fears, right? And those, looking at just from a spiritual perspective, the opposite of fear could be walking in faith, and Course in Miracles says is love. And how can I have faith I feel called? Oh my gosh, I feel called. All the doubts, and then all those things come up.
Abort. That's how my fear is. I have lots of interesting alarm bells and sounds in my head that go off. So you can also be playful with your fear too, of like, no, don't want to, embrace it. But the faith is an antidote to fear. Right.
Well, and I noticed, like, with my walk with fear and faith and running a business, stepping into the calling, all of that was, I was really expecting on some level. I realized, looking back, I was expecting the path to just show up. And that didn't happen, which brought me more fear. But what did happen is, as I was able to show up and ask, okay, well, I don't know the full path of how to get where I'm feeling called, but I can listen in this moment to my heart, and it'll show me the next step. And then it'll show me the next step, and then the next step. And eventually I look back and there's a path. It's really fascinating. And the power of the heart, I think, when people connect to their heart and maybe the true purpose of why they're called to do what they're doing, the answers show up, but not all at once. And that's the frustrating part.
I know, we all want it now, right?
Yeah.
Magic crystal ball. I think back to the gentleness and the leaning in with fear and faith. And I think in this society, we have this, mentality of like, win, get it done, very like go energy, right? And so I think this is where we can get really off of our path, and where more illusion can come in. It's like, well, I have this fear, I want to overcome it, so I must overcome it perfectly. I must overcome it at once and have this all figured out. And it's like, whoa, that's part of the illusion, maybe.
Yeah.
And so this is complicated. I really just invite to everyone that this can be more complex, and it is. And that's why it requires that gentleness. It requires that love and that faith part, whatever that means to you, right? However faith shows up for you, because it can be complicated and hairy. Hairy.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned the Enneagram. I think for those listeners that also follow the Enneagram, we could go through each core fear of each type, just to see if that helps you on your walk. If you aren't familiar with the Enneagram, it's a tool that we use in coaching, because it is one of the only personality assessments out there that it assesses what your ego structures are, blind spots, and it helps you quickly identify defense mechanisms and blind spots that get in the way, so that you can get out of the ego structures that keep us stuck and into more of your essence. So it's essentially the only tool I've come across that helps you get out of the box. There's a pathway out versus this is who you are. The Enneagram does not teach that. So type 1 is the perfectionist. Core fear type 1.
Being evil, bad, or corrupt. And so their desire is to be good, to be right, to be just at all times.
Ooh, so what would you say is the gift of the 1 in business?
Ooh, I actually wrote these down a while ago. Let me see if I can find it. But the gift of the 1 in business. Now I want my paper, Laurel. I might have to find that.
I would say the gift of the 1 in business is to provide structure, and sometimes that can also lead to clarity. That would be my first go-to if I just sink into my heart.
I can also think of fairness. Like I think of
Yeah.
workplaces that will advocate readily for anyone, even someone they're not friends with or that they don't know, because they care about equity. They care about fairness.
And wisdom of discernment.
Yeah.
What is this versus that? Yeah. Okay. Type 2 are the helpers.
Their core fear is being unworthy of love and to not have others to give and receive love with. And so their desire is to have that at all times.
And what would you say is the gift or blessing?
I think they give the gift of connection at work. You know, I see the 2s that they always are bringing cupcakes. They're always bringing little gifty poos. You know, they're always stopping to say hello, say goodbye on the way out. So I feel like they bring the gift of connection. There's the obvious helper part, but like that's just kind of obvious. But it's more than that. It's to connect.
Yeah. And the care.
Mm-hmm.
Just lots of care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Type 3 achievers.
The achievers, these are kind of your type A go-getter types, if you will, and their fear is being unworthy. And so while the 2s are worried about being unworthy of love, 3s are just flat out fearful of being unworthy. And so they seek a lot of external validations and achievements as a sense of validation, I should say. I don't know. How about innovation? 3s can bring a lot of innovation to things, but so can other types. What do you? Gift at work would be?
I've seen the gift of the 3 be motivation, like being so motivating and just engaging. Like they're very engaging, which can motivate people to reach a little further, go a little, think a little bit broader.
Yeah, so they're inspiring to create that motivation in others.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. Okay, type 4, the individualists.
Their deep fear is not knowing who they truly are and what their purpose is in this world. And we've all struggled with that at times, but 4s like really, really just internalize the struggle. And so their desire is to find their purpose, to know who they really are. You know, in the workplace, I find that 4s can bring a lot of the same help as a 2. But they bring it in such a creative way. Like they have that really different perspective that they can bring. They bring beauty and comfort in kind of a different, unique way that only 4s can do.
Yeah. Yes. I've seen such like unique creativity that 4s can bring into a business or their processes that other businesses just might not have.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. 5.
I was gonna hide because
I know Laurel's 5. Type 5 is, go ahead, Laurel.
Oh, type 5 is the investigator observer. And
their fear is of not being self-sufficient, being incompetent. And also I would say not knowing the whole truth, the why, the truth is very important to them.
That is my number 1 driver in life. Why? What is true? What is not true?
Yes. And so what do you think 5s you guys bring to business?
I would say what I've seen type 5s bring, just the gifts to the world, would be what is that? Sandy shared, it was like creating hybrids. They'll synthesize information and and sometimes be able to take abstract concepts and make it understandable.
Yep. And I'll just brag on Laurel for a second for the Institute, that she is amazing at content. So I think that bringing that wisdom, like you said, to the students and putting it into courses, putting it into curriculum, I feel like that's your greatest gift, is taking all these beautiful things and putting them into a focused curriculum for our students. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I just call myself a coaching geek, but
That's okay.
all right. So type 6, the loyalist, which is Tabitha. All right. Fears.
Oh, our basic fear is lack of support, safety, security, and certainty. So we want those things at all times. At all times.
And the gifts, would you like to?
So surprisingly enough, we kind of joke about the 6s that we're the scaredy cats and the lion hearts. And so we do bring the gift of faith and courage. So 6s can be the first to be like, the water cooler's breaking. I think it's leaking all over the place. And then we can like have this really big problem that we're like, no, we're going to do this. And people are like, what? You were just freaking out over nothing the other day. So I think the gift of faith and courage is a big part that we bring. We just don't have it all the time. We have it in moments. And then we're the worker bees. 6s are the worker bees that can really just hold up a company and get stuff done.
Yeah. Yeah. And that loyalty piece, just having people in your presence feel so safe and protected. Yeah. All right. Type 7 is the enthusiast.
Yes, the party people of the Enneagram. Their deep fear is being trapped in pain, whether that's mental, emotional, or physical pain. And so they want joy and fun and freedom at all times. And they really do bring the gift of fun to work. It's like really important though, because I coach a corporate office that has a ton of 6s, and only a few of them have a 7 wing. We don't have an actual 7 in the office, but my goodness, can they all be so serious for days on end. And so having that little 7 pop in can really just lighten the mood, brighten the day.
Yeah. And for those tuning in, a wing is like, what is the number on each side of your core type? So as a 5, I could have a 6 wing and a 4 wing. I happen to have both, but yeah, so you could have one or both. I've only met one person that I really don't think had either wing, was just a straight core Enneagram type. And I thought that was interesting.
I think just one in my whole career so far.
Yeah, same. All right. So go ahead.
Type 8, the challenger. I'm going to have to sneeze maybe in a second, so I'll let Laurel take on this and mute.
Okay. So the challenger, the core fears are to be powerless. And this lends to the gift of, I think I've seen 8s have such a gift for directness, protectiveness.
I would say leadership. Like
leaders. Yes, they're natural leaders.
Really awesome gift of leadership in the workplace, which can go wrong sometimes. But if an 8's, really leading from their heart, they can do powerful things.
Yeah.
And then 9 are peacemakers. Their deep fear is loss of peace and harmony
within.
You're right. And worst case scenario, fragmentation.
Yes.
And so their desire is to have that peace and harmony at all times. And so they really do bring like that peaceful vibe to work. I sometimes lovingly, jokingly call them like the hippies of the Enneagram, because they're like, it's okay, man.
All good. Yes. Everything.
And so they like kind of calm the energy when the 6s are like, oh my God, we got to fix this. The 9s are like, it's going to be fine. It's fine.
Yeah. So just that peacefulness, that middle way can be such a gift in business. Yeah. Well, that was a fun little detour.
And I need to like find my little piece of paper or something.
Yeah. That sounds, I'd love to see it.
Yeah. That was fun.
Well, and the other thing that I wanted to bring up is, I've seen how when people get really connected to their business as a spiritual endeavor, and I've seen Mark Silver do amazing things with this. He owns the Heart of Business, and bringing that spiritual element, that heart element into what we're doing, I've just seen shift people so much at a core level. And, even thinking about faith in self, right? Like moving from, okay, here's the fear, but if I anchor into what I can stand true on within me, I still might feel the fear, but I can stand on what's true. I have a good heart. I bring something to the table. Just whatever that is, everyone's going to be so unique, and standing on that can help, I think, with that confidence piece. And that's the work we do in coaching, is helping people find that inner core that is solid, true. And, to use the Enneagram language, move from the vice of the ego structure to the virtue of the human being that is unique, whole, and resourced.
Yep. Beautiful. And fear will shift and change. So I think sometimes we go into this again in that, like, I'm going to do it, I'm going to overcome it. And being frustrated and impatient when fear is not simply gone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's never been the guarantee that you just suddenly are without fear. It's that we lean into it. We can hold space for it as we're approaching it. It will shift over time and new fears will arise. And I think that's part of the simple journey of being a human being as well. Like, that's going to be a lifelong journey. And for your business, it will be the same. Your business will have different seasons. Your business will have different changes and shifts, and new and different fears will approach.
Yeah.
And so you can treat it again as a practice versus this thing to overcome. Like Laurel was saying, to partner with your fear.
Mm-hmm.
It is a journey. It's not a destination.
Yeah.
You'll have little stops along the way of arrival, but then there'll be a new thing that somehow creeps in.
It's so true. And also, I was thinking how I've noticed that when somebody gets to partner with their fear, receives the message it has, it loses some power.
Absolutely. Yeah, it has to shift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lovely. Well, thank you so much, Tabitha. This has been so fun to explore fear. I know, fun,
I love it.
Interesting conversation. Yeah.
This is definitely one of my favorite subjects to talk about with clients. And because as a 6, I've had a lot of fear in this life.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I still have fear, that I just feel like I understand what it takes to overcome it now. And it's a journey, and it's bit by bit, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So it doesn't scare me like it used to.
Yeah.
At least some things. There's still some big things I'm working on. Don't get me wrong.
I know every level we have a couple more fears pop up, but
it's fun when you can learn how to understand it and demystify it in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So true. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that these messages have been a lantern to your path as you expand your success as a coach, leader, or helping professional. You can join the conversation further at integrativeintelligence.global. And if you would like business launch support, you can visit us at integrativecoachtraining.com. We just click on business launch for coaches. We do have programs to help you get through the external and internal fears. And we hope to see you next time.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.